MTN SME Hub. Link to growth. Link to success. Link to the ultimate resource for business advice and insights.
Welcome to the Big Small Business Show, the show for all our wonderful entrepreneurs out there, and another serious show today because we're talking predominantly today about tax, but we're talking about tax breaks, tax incentives, the positive side where you can get money back or save money. And in studio with us today, we've got George Diab. He's the founder and CEO of Gas Accounting, and welcome.
Thank you, Allon. Great to be back.
Right, so talk to us about tax benefits. I mean, it feels like those two words should never be together, but they are. What are tax benefits?
So SARS wants SMEs to succeed. It's in everyone's interest. It's in their interest because the bigger an SME can grow, the more tax revenue they can collect, the more employment opportunities that are created. And SARS has come up with two real tax benefits or incentives for small to medium-sized businesses. The first tax regime is called the turnover tax regime. And the second one, which is quite common, it's quite commonly spoken about, is the small business corporation. But let's talk about the one that doesn't get as much of the spotlight, turnover tax.
Okay.
Essentially, what SARS is saying is if you are a small business and turn over less than 1 million rand per year, then you could qualify for turnover tax. And what that means practically to you is your effective tax rate would be on your total amount of turnover on a progressive scale, and the maximum amount of tax you'll pay is 3% of that total turnover.
Wait. So when you say progressive, it could be at 1%.
Could be at zero.
Could be at zero.
Yes. So if your turnover is less than 335,000 Rand per annum, you'll pay zero tax.
Okay. So once again, if I start and I don't know what I'm going to do in the first year, right, I could... So where do you register? You have to do this at the end of your financial year, right?
You'll do it at the end of the financial year, and you can do it through the SARS website.
Yeah.
You download the forms there, but the registration has to be in the SARS branch. So you would go to the SARS branch, and provided you're eligible for the turnover tax regime, they'll register you.
So I go into a branch, a SARS branch, and I say, I'm starting a business. Or could I already have a business?
You could already have a business. That's perfectly fine.
That's right. So I've got a business that wasn't registered. I did 200,000 last year.
Yes.
Now and I paid tax on it.
Yes.
And then I watched the show and I go, OMG, I should have done this. Yes. I go into a SARS branch and I register for this.
Yes.
Right. Correct. And now for the following year, I pay zero if I'm less than 335.
335, you'll pay zero tax.
So you go from zero and to a maximum of 3%.
To a maximum of 3% at R1 million.
At R1 million. Right. Once again, like in the VAT example when you were on the show before, if I do 1.1 million, but I'm expecting to do 900,000, I now pay the normal tax rate if I'm at 1.1. I can't argue this was a good year.
You would no longer qualify, so you would no longer meet the eligibility requirements for turnover tax.
Yeah.
But then you may fall into the small business corporation tax.
Well, we're going to come to that later.
Yes.
Okay. But so I go to 1.1. I move from my 3% to the 27%. And then the following year I do 900,000. What am I paying now?
You're going to be paying 27%.
Okay.
So you can't go back. So once you've crossed that R1 million and you've registered once, you can't go back and register for turnover tax again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I go to, why have they done it where you have to go into a branch, do you think? Don't you know?
They want to verify all the information. So although you can download the forms online, typically the taxpayers that are going to be earning less than R1 million, possibly aren't working with tax practitioners, and they would then need to go into the branch just to ensure that everything's done correctly and that all the verifications are done on their side.
Okay. All right. So now I'm in this this bracket, and let's say I have in perpetuity I do less than $1 million.
Sure.
In perpetuity, there's no time constraint. In perpetuity, as long as I'm under $1 million, I'm paying 3%.
As long as you're under $1 million, you'll be paying 3%. But I'd be remiss to not mention that we have to consider the nature of the business again, right?
Yeah.
So you're paying 3% of turnover. So let's say, for example, you're operating at R1 million. Your 3% is going to equate to 30,000 rands worth of tax for that year.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you would have paid if you were taxed on the normal tax regime, which is the small business corporation tax, right?
Okay.
So under that tax regime, maybe your taxable income would have been $1 million. Your turnover would have been $1 million, but your taxable income may have been 10,000 or nothing or zero. Under that tax regime, it might have been more favorable for you to be taxed as a small business corporation, where you would have paid no tax or worked up an assessed loss, rather than under the turnover tax, where you would have been paying 30,000 rand.
So let's go there. Let's go to the second incentive, the small
business corporation, SBC.
Right. So what does that entail?
So to be a small business corporation, your turnover needs to be less than 20 million rand in a tax year.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other requirements, but the main requirement that spits most entrepreneurs out is you cannot have an interest in any other company. And this is a pure anti-avoidance rule, right?
Okay.
So SARS doesn't want you owning 20 companies where you taxed, as a small business corporation. So if it's just you and you've got only one interest in one company, you will qualify. If you have interest in more than one company, that spits you out. The other requirement is you have to employ more than 3 people that are not connected. So it can't be your domestic worker, it can't be your mom or sister or son. It has to be 3 unconnected people, and then you start falling within the SBC requirements.
Okay. And to register is simple?
Very simple, all done through the SARS website.
Okay, there you don't have to go into a branch.
No branch application required.
And what kind of proof do you have to provide?
So we actually just do it on your tax return. So no proofs required. SARS there's a checkbox to say, are you a small business corporation? And we tick, yes, you are. And then if SARS audits you, we obviously have to prove it. So you can't just tick the box and say, yes, I am, because if you get audited and you're not, what would then happen is they would charge you interest and penalties on all the taxes that you didn't pay. So you want to make sure that you are an SBC before you tick that box on e-filing.
We're going to take a break now. When we come back, more information on tax benefits from George Diab.
MTN SME Hub, link to business success.